Okay. I'm glad to be here, and thanks for the invitation, for the opportunity to speak. I could talk for an hour and a half, and that's after Paul Revard stole some of my speech. I'm from the Pawhuska district. My great-grandmother was Hope Watson from Gray Horse. My great-grandfather was Henry Koshihee from Pawhuska, but we are Pawhuska district people. I'm a petroleum engineer, and I have a master's in environmental engineering. I spent 36 years with the Bureau of Indian Affairs. 15 of that was as an agency superintendent, and I've served every tribe in eastern Oklahoma except the Osages, the Cherokees, and the Creeks. I've dealt with every form of tribal government, constitutional governments, and resolution forms of government. I've seen everything. I've known all types of tribal leaders. As a superintendent, I was a line officer at that agency, and my primary responsibility, besides trust services and all the many services that we offered, was to maintain a relationship with that chief. And I'll tell you right now, the United States government considers the chief in the government-to-government relationship. At times, there would be internal conflicts with tribes. I could listen to the tribal council members or business committee members, but I primarily served that communication with the chief. And I bring that background and that knowledge as a candidate for the Minerals Council. I think it's important. Our chief, our Minerals Council, and our Congress needs to get along. There needs to be communication. And Melissa stole part of my speech right there at the very beginning. It's important. I've heard it a lot. I've heard it from different candidates. And we have to carry that through if elected and hold us accountable, ask questions. And if I am elected, I want communication with all the people, all the voting annuitants. Don't vote us in and forget about us, and don't let us forget about you. Last summer, I received a phone call from Jim Gray, one of our former chiefs, and he'd been talking to Wilson Pipestem and others, and he said, "Paul, we're in trouble." He said, "We need you to run for Minerals Council." And at the time, I thought, I don't want any part of that. I retired from the BIA in 2018. I was tired of dealing with people that were difficult to deal with. And the more I thought about it, I started looking into it, and I thought, I don't want to sound like I'm bragging, but I felt like I was uniquely qualified to run for Minerals Council. Being an engineer, having been an agency superintendent for 15 years, as a petroleum engineer, I worked with previous tribal councils. And I see some of the descendants of those people here. I worked with Harry Redigal, Dudley Whitehorn, Kenny Bighorse, all of them, Charlie Tillman. And one of my principal duties was to evaluate proposals that came in and then pass them on to the tribal council with my recommendations and suggestions. I really feel like I need to do this, and it's not about ego. It's to fix what's wrong. Paul Revard touched on most of it, if not all of it. The problem is with our trustee, and he's right about that lawsuit and NEPA. We did not have an environmental impact statement in place. We knew this for decades, since the act was enacted. About 5 years ago, I was contacted by Wilson Pipestem. He got the contract with the Minerals Council to go in and redo the environmental impact statement. We had an environmental impact statement proposed by the BIA. I was hired as a consulting engineer. I took a look at it and I said, this has nothing to do with Osages. And in fact, it didn't. It was an environmental impact statement from the BLM. The BLM hired a contractor that came up with this environmental impact statement. The BIA was trying to shove it down our throats. And so I didn't get any help from the Osage Agency or from the Muskogee Regional Office. So, and Wilson Pipestem had the right kind of contacts in Washington, D.C. One night he called me and he said, Paul, you rewrite this thing the way you think it needs to be. Get your technical team together. I've got the green light to go ahead. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Tribes never hear that. So I had the other engineer that I was working with. Okay, I'm an environmental engineer, but my background is petroleum engineering. My partner is an attorney who's also a petroleum engineer. We rewrote this thing. It's exactly what we needed. And some of the options that the BLM or the BIA had brought forward would have removed a third of our surface area from oil and gas drilling and production. It was a disaster. This was our trustee that did this. I could go on and on. I'm trying to truncate this because I have several things I want to cover. Also, my niece, Katie Yates Free, was handling feed of trust at the Osage Agency. And as a superintendent at Miami, Oklahoma, we had a Superfund site, Tar Creek. And part of my guidance in handling trust operations there was a solicitor's opinion on taking land into trust inside of a Superfund site. That's a surplus site. The Osage Ranch, when the BIA first, when the Osage tribe first decided to go for the feed of trust application, on an initial review by the BIA, they said it's going to cost $90-some million, which is prohibitive to clean it up to take into trust. But they were using surplus standards, which is not applicable. It's NEPA standards in a non-circular, non-Superfund site. That made me wonder if the BIA really knew what they were doing. This is our trustee making these poor decisions or misapplication of solicitors' opinions, using the wrong assumptions. There's a couple of other examples, although I got the sense I'm approaching into my discussion. Let me just say this. I have a plan to fix this. I have a plan to fix our records. I have a plan to get the right kind of regulations in place. Our regulations come from, and I've handled this lease before, the original Foster lease from 1896. Some of the language in the 1906 Osage Allotment Act, as amended, comes directly from that lease. And our regulatory structure is so different from any other tribe. I've gone to trust trainings, real estate trainings as a bureau employee, and everywhere you'd go, they would lay out, okay, here's what you do in this situation. It said, except Osage. We're unique, and we need to stay that way. I don't know whether it's because of some unrevealed motives, if the BIA is just unschooled, if they're ignorant, if they don't know what's going on. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. Because the way to solve this, we have to work with the BIA. They're our federal partner. I have fixed problems like this in the past as a superintendent and as an engineer. And the way you solve it is you develop leverage, either before or as you're going into negotiations. You don't beat them over the head with it. You don't want to call out a bureaucrat and embarrass them. You're already fighting them, so you don't poke the bear. But I think I have already, working with people who've previously been on the council, clever Osage attorneys, people that are connected, and that's important. People that know the solicitors in DC, like Wilson Pipestem. He knows those people. So does Jeffrey Standing Bear and others. And if we can develop our leverage, approach these people, I'm just going to assume that the BIA does not know how to be our trustee. We need to develop the right type of fully staffed. A friend of mine did a study about 25 years ago. I feel like I'm stooping over. It was about 25 years ago, and there are other venues like Osage, 1 million plus acres with one royal builder, and the staff just for oil and gas operations was 60 to 80 people. At the most, we've had 25 for minerals. Where weakened areas, staff would help. We need to educate the BIA on how to come in and evaluate the job that they're doing without embarrassing them. I'd love to talk to you at length about this. I'll be getting some information into the Osage News, my candidate statement, and I'll talk to anybody anytime. There's a lot that I think the annuitants need to know. They need to be educated on what's wrong, how to fix it, and I can work with anybody. I've looked at the incumbents on the Minerals Council. I've identified strengths. This person brings this, that person brings that. Paul Rugard brings good experience as an independent oil and gas producer. Others bring other experience. We have to work together. We have to respect our chief, our Congress, and work together as the Minerals Council, and we can get this done. And I would appreciate your vote. I think I can help us. I really do. Thank you.